In August of 2023, Baldur's Gate 3 launched to one of the most positive waves of reception we've seen this generation. While this channel doesn't cover the fantasy genre, this success as laid out by Baldur News here.
How to actually pull off something as Herculean as this. When you take a team, tools, and effort from previous developments, and when you take that and you use it to build something new with all of your skill and all of your tools, you can make something exceptional that truly resonates with your audience and generates proportionately excellent sales.
Is a product of a very precise combination of time, focus, and control over the project's development. For those who follow my content regularly, this may sound familiar. While Star Citizen does not come from a proven company with various released projects and a long-running team carefully cultivated over decades, it features a dedicated team of industry veterans running on a technology platform under their complete control, with a timeline entirely dictated by themselves. In this video, we're going to look at what the success of Baldur's Gate 3 can tell us about Star Citizen, and the importance of complete control over the development. Will it mean success for Star Citizen, or slow burnout? This is my August exclusive video for my supporters. I like to call them Red Takes. If you haven't jumped in yet, I make these every month for those who make my videos possible on Patreon and YouTube as channel members, along with behind the scenes, exclusive chat, and a referral code randomizer for Star Citizen rewards. If you'd like to support us, check out more below. And if you already have, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks. I will be the first to say I'm not very interested in a fantasy isometric turn-based RPG. I love a good BioWare-styled RPG experience, and I find myself bouncing around listening to reviews of the game, but I'm very much stuck in my sci-fi ways. But that doesn't change the fact that what we're seeing is a once-in-a-generation combination of dedication, team building, drive, and creativity to create what the gaming industry is all about. A player-driven story that allows you to interact with elements in whatever way you see fit to accomplish your goals. This is something you generally find in immersive sims like Deus Ex, Prey, System Shock, or Dishonored. In my opinion, it's what really sets a game apart from a movie. It highlights the player interaction and the AI responsiveness. RPGs are character-driven narrative stories that can pull elements from this, but creating a truly immersive experience takes an absolute ton of time and development resources. Baldur's Gate 3 is both. So when this game landed from a studio that many didn't recognize, players who weren't already engrossed in the early access period of feedback and testing were interested in learning more about where this game came from. Turns out, Larian Studios has quite the pedigree, and most who pay attention to the genre know their previous works in the Divinity series of RPGs. But the team didn't start Baldur's Gate 3 as they finished it, with a team growing more than threefold from 120 people at the onset to 450 by game launch with 6 different studios worldwide. The explosive growth was necessary as the game expanded in scale and scope throughout development, and it is not contained to just the company itself. A number of additional studios were tapped for contracting work to help with putting together the cinematic piece, including a heavy reliance on Telltale, who recently produced the Expanse games. While an expansion like this can lead to some pretty jarring changes in the way a company works, Larian Studios was smart about it. The company has been making games for a long time. Though they did have a couple earlier games, even the Divinity series was released more than 2 decades ago. And since then, the studio has curated their team to make something very focused and dedicated to the vision of RPGs. They've also taken care of that team, working with their developers to ensure long employment and a general synthesis between the folks working and the identity of the games they're working on. And that's really the key to Baldur's Gate 3. Not only did the team accrue a huge group of developers with a very distinct goal of making the definitive immersive RPG in a fantasy world, they made use of key partnerships, a long-running investment in their teams, the ability to self-publish, and an immense amount of resources to meet their challenge. And while this does actually sound a bit familiar to Cloud Imperium Games building Star Citizen, the company has shown a less tight and focused discipline in achieving that goal. Let's take a look at the similarities and differences between the development of these games and how CIG might improve. Star Citizen has a colored history. It's not yet complete and still has a long way to go. While this is a point of contention for many, there are some pretty clear reasons for this. Starting from zero with the goal of creating 2 entire AAA quality games with massive scale based on your own engine isn't easy. And the early management mishaps have definitely proven so. The engine development itself has been a huge slowdown for the company, as the open development process has also dictated the game needs to be playable throughout the construction of all the different pieces. We can see the faults of that with updates like 3.0, 3.18, and likely 4.0 coming up soon-ish. Then there is the fact that this has not been one single long-running company with a background of working together before. Cloud Imperium as a company began at the same time as Star Citizen's development, so a previous, well-adjusted and informed workforce with the time, collaboration, and adequate funding behind them didn't exist. The company only numbered 500 employees in 2018 and continued to grow from there. And there are plenty of stories of how the funding has gone since the game began. But only really in the last 4 years have we outwardly been able to see teams find their strides and build workflows that deliver content in a timely fashion. The Montreal Sandbox team, the Vehicle Experience team, the Engine team, the Planet Tech team, the Landing Zone team, and the Missions Features team. All of this content, from new locations to new missions to Gen 12, are products of a long time building up practices and partnerships that work in tandem to deliver on some of the game's promises. But can CIG continue to treat these employees right and keep them working in the world of Star Citizen? That could be a key to the game's overall success, and at only 10 years together so far, there's still plenty of time for the strategy to fail. And so these are some of the places where the studio behind Star Citizen diverges from that behind Baldur's Gate 3. But reading in between the lines does reveal some pretty strong similarities as well. The most recent and obvious being the long-running partnership between Turbulent Games in Montreal and Cloud Imperium. It's not a coincidence that Star Citizen has existing teams in Montreal. The two companies have been working together as contractors since 2013, and over that time have integrated services, workforces, and practices to develop Star Citizen together. From the website backend to network functionality in the game itself, this has proven to be a fruitful partnership, and the investment in building it closer is reminiscent of many successful studio partnerships in the industry, including Telltale and Larian Studios. And how about game engines? A big part of what has prolonged Star Citizen's development for so much time. While it may be questionable how the process was conducted, having control over your own game engine for a very specific use case seems to make sense. Obviously, Larian Studios is just one version of this story, but look at the differences between games that were built on an engine that was tailor-made for the game and games that weren't. Larian Studios has been using the Divine engine to create games since 1996. Combined with the decades of knowledge on the engine between the long-running team, it starts to make a lot of sense why the team can put something together so impressive in 6 years. The goal has always not just been about making games. It was about creating a system that would produce the best of what it was meant to create. This is only helped forward by the fact that Larian Studios is self-publishing, allowing themselves more freedom to act on their own timelines. Another similarity it has with Cloud Imperium. But back to the engine at hand. If a building needs to be constructed for dozens if not hundreds of years of use, it needs to be built properly, stably, with fail-safes and experience built into it. The scaffolding and foundation need to be strong and reliable. And if that building is your video game, the scaffolding is your game engine. And both being built at the same time makes things a bit difficult. But the custom systems that this has allowed for the company to make in order to build the game they're trying to make are starting to come together. Just like Larian, the goal has always been a singular objective. Just trade out the magic for cybernetics and the beast for the space cows. Star Citizen was always meant to be an open-ended immersive sandbox space MMO, and thus the systems have been continuously geared towards making that. The Building Blocks UI tool that can be melded to fit the exact UI constraints for CIG, allowing every dev to learn a proprietary tool inside and out that helps push products out with more support, a solid knowledge base, and plenty of prior experience. Or the Planet Tech tool, finalized back in 2019, that has allowed the developers to continue building on the foundation they already built, adding clouds, large-scale planetary structures, more complex geological structures, rivers, and more still to come. Then there's the tech, like object container streaming, meant to save and store specific sections of the game as players move around, saving on the cost of maintaining billions of kilometers of space for dozens of players in different locations. And this is of course a key part of their ultimate goal, dynamic server meshing, in which any number of servers can simultaneously load different parts of every star system, from a full planetary body all the way down to just a spaceship, allowing for a huge increase in performance for the game overall and the underlying backbone of the game working as the original MMO vision. See, throughout this whole process of trying to make all these systems a reality and keeping some sort of playable demo live, the key to the game's overall success will be allowing many players the opportunity to simultaneously experience any level of mining operations, planet-side battles, random outpost management, exploration expeditions, and more. That kind of interactivity on the scale they want calls for some interesting network functionality, which you can hear more about in my explainer video. It's a little too much to go over right now. If there's one thing that continues to pain me about the game industry, it's the ephemeral nature of the industry itself. Constantly seeing studios closed or largely gutted of what made them special just 10 years prior. We see examples of it constantly with the quality between successive games or the complete shuttering of a series even if temporary. The industry is unpredictable, so when a company can offer a bit of predictability in what it does through a strong team, stable management, shared focused goal, and an active environment to test and receive feedback on what they're doing right and wrong, I'm gonna hope they can be copied, followed, replicated, or whatever needs to happen for other companies to do the same. There are examples of this kind of long-term success scattered throughout the games industry. Larian is just a very recent and standout example. But seeing my obvious connection to Star Citizen, I hope this is something that we are only seeing the beginning of with them. It's very obvious CIG has had its problems when it comes to management, marketing, and communication. Some are a difficulty of the trade, and some are self-inflicted. This has not been a perfect journey, but it's been one of progress. The game is coming together, the community is settling in, and some long-term plans are beginning to actually happen. I can only hope the studio can continue to build on its successes, trimming the parts that don't work and capitalizing on what does for the player, for the devs, and for the game as a whole. They are lofty wishes in an industry like this, but I'm sure they'll learn. Thank you for watching this video. It's another Red Take made exclusively for my supporters who make all this possible. While it's released publicly shortly after, you can get the chance to see these multiple months early by becoming a YouTube channel member down below or checking out our Patreon. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those games I wish was a space game, but I just got that in the form of Starfield, which plays like space Skyrim, so I'm satisfied. Realistically, I'm happy to see the conditions that led to the success of this game, as it is another data point, however small, that points to long-term investment in understanding the goal and the execution as being the key to a truly good game. And fantasy fans should get to go off with a game like this. Dungeons & Dragons is a pretty cool IP. That's not to say all games that go through a process of iteration, full control of the situation, and long-term team building will be a success, but when they are, they can shine. So yeah, of course, I hope that's the case for Star Citizen, but as it has always been, only time will tell. If you'd like to stick around for that adventure, I'll be covering Star Citizen until it's finally fully in our hands, as well as other space games along the way. So if you're looking for more well-produced, informative space game news, podcasts, live streams, and gameplay, subscribe here and consider checking out my other channel, Space Tomato 2. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.